Until just a couple years ago, I was a registered Republican, but the situation in government became so distasteful to me a couple of years ago that I changed my party affiliation.
We have been seeing Republicans who definitely want a dictatorship. That is not the America I know and love, and I believe that there are Republicans there who agree with me.
We're not talking to one another, and we need to. There are people on both sides who want the best for their families. I think they want the best for their communities, but they're not willing to discuss the options for getting there. And I think that's an important thing for us to do.
And welcome to episode number 1 of I'm Not Running for Congress. I'm Don Baisley. What we're trying to do here with this program is offer a platform to host conversations that support the U.S. Constitution and basically help to promote Democratic candidates. It seems right now the Republican Party is not really sticking with the Constitution. So my aim is to elevate voices that want to stand by and defend the U.S. Constitution, regardless of what party you're in or regardless of who you voted for last time. So in general, I'm going to present a bunch of different topics. I'll also be going to events and bringing back reports or at least, sound bites or interviews with people, with voters and whatnot. I'll be traveling to diners. So, if you're watching this, I'm just looking to elevate voices. Get in touch with us through the channels here. Anyway, we're going to talk about a bunch of different issues throughout this program, or throughout the series of the program, I would say. But in terms of politics, we're really going to concentrate a lot on Congressional District 23 in New York State. I live in Congressional District 19, represented currently by Josh Riley. Hopefully we will have him on at some point. We sent a request into his office. But we're really going to start by concentrating on Congressional District 23. That's the southern tier of New York State. I kind of see it as a microcosm of rural American politics in a way, in terms of the challenges being faced in that district, and it's right next door to where I live. Currently represented by Representative Nick Langworthy, Republican. Well, joining us now is Aaron Gies, who's candidate for Congress in New York State's District 23. Aaron, welcome to the first episode of I'm Not Running for Congress.
Thanks, Don. Thanks for having me. This is great.
And I should say that this program is titled I'm Not Running for Congress. I'm not running for Congress because Aaron Gies is. So thank you, Aaron, for running. And so to start with, I guess, I'm noticing online a lot of people in our district haven't even heard of you yet. So let's start with that. Who are you? What are you doing? Why are you running? Tell us about Aaron Gies.
Sure. So name recognition is definitely a big issue for us. Although it's starting to get out there a little bit. I actually got stopped in the grocery store several times today, which feels great, actually. Who am I? I am a professor at St. Bonaventure University. I've spent my whole career in nonprofit service of one kind or another. So education would be one example. But for a long time, I was a music director for churches. So I would put together bands and put together liturgies for churches. So lots of trying to coordinate groups of teenagers and older folks and get everybody on the same page and produce something that's beautiful and meaningful. I've also been, a substitute teacher. And so neither of my parents went to college. And that means that, as a kid, I worked for my dad doing construction and I did all the service jobs. In my professional career, it's been pretty much straight nonprofit service. That's where my heart is, building community.
And how did you end up running for Congress? It sounds like it would be a peaceful life to not be running for Congress, but you decided to do that. How'd you end up here?
Yeah. So I think the thing that really pushed me out the door was when early in Trump's second term, he started talking about revoking temporary protected status for several groups, Venezuelans, Haitians, but especially Ukrainians. And my family and I had been involved in trying to help some refugees resettle. And I thought about that policy and I thought, That's just crazy. Like, these people are fleeing an invasion. They fled with nothing. America has historically defended democracy at home and around the world. They attacked an ally of ours, and now we're turning on our allies. We're kicking out the refugees. And I could say from personal experience, because I've been involved, that the community wants them there. That they were received with open arms, and so it just seemed totally at odds with our values. And so that got me to contact our congressman, because I thought, maybe this is Trump, and things might be different here. It's different in Western New York. But no, I got the same form letter as everybody else did, and in full support of whatever the administration wanted to do in Ukraine. And I thought, that's madness. I have to do something. And so I didn't decide that I was going to run for Congress right away. But that got me out looking around. What could we do to make some positive change and have policy here that's like closer to what our actual values are.
I know the district has fairly recent lines are drawn in terms of years, and the district is, Ithaca's not in the district anymore. Buffalo's not in it either. It's very Republican in general, I would say. I haven't done the research to the actual voter registrations, but it's a red district, I'd say. A Cook Political Report says that Nick Langworthy's seat is safe forever. I'm not quoting that, but it was something along those lines. I started this podcast because I truly feel that there are a lot of people out there in the middle who aren't being heard. And I'm wondering, as a person who's running as a Democrat in District 23, there's still a lot of Trump supporters out there, I believe. What are you seeing? As you've been out, I happened to introduce myself to you over the summer, and I noticed as soon as I realized what Nick Langworthy was not doing in District 23, that's where I jokingly said I was going to run for Congress. But I found out that you had expressed an interest at that time, and so I introduced myself to you, and I find myself wondering, how do you feel as a Democrat? What are you finding out there?
Okay, yeah. So in 2023, we lost Ithaca and its environs, and we gained the Buffalo South towns, Hamburg, Orchard Park, East Aurora. And so actually Cook Political Report at that time made us they estimate that we're less solidly red than we were. So now it's R+10, I think, instead of R+12. But the big trend, and this very much goes along with what you were saying, Don, the big trend in this district over the last 20 years or so is disaffiliation. Like, we now have the group of non-affiliated voters in District 23 is bigger than either the number of Democrats or the number of Republicans. And so those folks are people that are like shouting at us, I really don't identify with either of these two parties. I don't like them. They don't speak for me. So that's definitely a challenge. One of the things that I think is important to say early and often in this process is, I don't think the two parties are doing a great job either. I think over the last 50 years, they've both really invested in the largest companies that have a global footprint and transferred our wealth to them as a way of making our lives better, maybe. And that hasn't worked. And they've disinvested from the working class. And that's had awful consequences for places like this. But I think the solution to that is like more democracy, not less. Maybe less power for the two parties, better representation for people on the ground. You asked me what I'm hearing. So we haven't done any polling yet. So I can't, all I can give you is anecdotes, right? So I went to a protest yesterday to talk to folks about Alex Preddy and all the stuff going on in Minneapolis. And I was walking around on the line, and I met several Republicans that were out there that told me they were Republicans, that said they were horrified and said they were glad I was doing what I was doing. And we got coal rolled by some dudes in big trucks. Yeah, so the polarization continues, right? But there are a lot of people here who aren't extreme partisans, who are paying attention and see a lot of things happen that are not in accord with our values. I also meet a lot of Republicans on the campaign trail who either served or their parents served in the armed forces. And the thing that got them to come out to my event was they feel like the cuts to the VA, the suckers and losers line, the irresponsible use of the armed forces in the Caribbean is just like a betrayal of what they really think America stands for. So there are big things going on, but no like big changes yet.
I'm sensing myself that we're at the beginning of a major change. That's going to take some time, politically and socially. And I think that this race is kind of, in a microcosm way, kind of simplifies that in a way. So the district still, regardless of, MAGA or Trump or whatever, the district has been historically Republican. There are many people, whether they, who, while there may be many independents, like you said, but there are many Republicans. And I'm convinced, I don't have data to back this up, but I'm convinced that many of those people are actually decent people who believe in the rule of the Constitution. And that's kind of where I'm coming from with this program. I'm not as much pushing my own personal politics, which kind of lean more toward Bernie Sanders, quite frankly. I'm more interested in saving our democracy. And I want to find that commonality. And then we'll worry about the bigger issues once we save democracy. That's kind of where I'm coming from. So what would you say to someone who has generations of Republican history, living in District 23? Not only have they never voted for a Republican, but they hear every day the president saying that the Democrat, they've always voted Republican, but they hear every day the president saying, not only are these Democrats political opponents, they're evil, they're vile, they're animal. Like, what do you say to a person registered as a Republican to get them to consider actually voting for a Democrat this time?
Yeah, I mean, so you gotta your antenna have to go up when somebody starts using demonizing language, right? When the first words about the other person are they're extreme, they're radical, they're vermin, they're terrorists, like. You should always be suspicious of that language, whoever it's coming from. And when we tell folks that they ought to turn down the temperature, I mean, that ought to be the first stuff that we look at, because long before anybody picks up a gun, they're using words like that. And we really shouldn't be using words like that in our politics if we can at all avoid it. So, let's assume you are a little bit worried about that and you're looking around and you're wondering, what are these Democrats really like? I will tell you what I am for. I am for the common good. I'm for the things that we all want for each other. I want your kids to have a good education. I want you to have a safe place to live. I want you to have a job that gives you dignity and lets you pay your bills. And I want you to have health care if you get sick. That's good quality and that isn't too far away. Because I don't think anybody really thinks that our neighbors should die of a preventable disease because they're poor or because they live far out in the county. So that's what I'm for. And that's what I'm campaigning on. We call it a good life you can afford. It's not that complicated. So that's what I'm for. And I would encourage you to go and look at Nick Langworthy's voting record. And what you'll find is that the representation that we currently have overwhelmingly favors wealth transfers to the rich who don't live in this district, let me tell you. And that Nick Langworthy really isn't responsive to his constituents, that he doesn't do town halls, that he doesn't answer calls and letters, with his real voice. It's just form letters. And that when he's asked tough questions, he deflects and calls the other side evil. And I think we can do better. I really think we can do better. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, you did. I will say that it was when I first looked into District 23 just to find out. I first started realizing we have to flip the House. I am semi-happy with my representative here in CD 19, Josh Riley. In general, he's a decent person, and that's where I'm at with politics. So I'm not after replacing Josh today. That could change. But in general, I'm happy with Josh Riley, with a few exceptions. But my point is I looked as close as I could. And I looked at the district next door, 23, and I found that Nick Langworthy was really doing nothing. And on this program, I should say, I don't want to spend a lot of time bashing anyone or da-da-da-da-da. But it is important. You can't have these conversations without at least acknowledging where the incumbent is and what the incumbent is doing. So when I looked in and found out this person's not even having town halls, this is what drove me to think, I'll run against this guy. He's so, and fortunately that idea didn't last long, but how do you think Nick Langworthy would respond to what you just said you stood for? Let's start with the common good. Where does he fit into that?
Yeah. So how would Nick respond to that message? I mean, I guess we're going to find out.
I am inviting him on the show, by the way. He will be invited. All candidates running for this seat in Congress will be invited to the show, and will also be asked roughly the same questions. So anyway, go ahead.
Okay. Well, so lots of his messaging is around things like that. If you look at his palm card, it says stuff like common sense conservative, support farmers, support affordable energy. Like he loves to talk about natural gas because natural gas, never mind. But what's the result? What is he actually doing? What's he doing there in Congress? And really the only thing that he's done in Congress besides the big, beautiful bill, which he voted for, and which represents an enormous transfer of wealth from the young to the old, from the bottom to the top, and from the future to the past, in terms of what technologies we're investing in. He rose in enthusiastic support of that bill. So yes, there's a limited program that reduces taxes on tips and reduces taxes on Social Security, but all that stuff is set to sunset quickly. And meanwhile, those big corporate tax cuts and the cuts to healthcare that are really, really going to impact our lives here, cost us jobs, cost us our livelihood, our healthcare access. That stuff is permanent. So I think he kind of talks out of both sides of his mouth on that kind of thing. And then his pet bill is the SAVE Act, which is really about voter ID and would disenfranchise a lot of women, particularly married women.
Again, I don't want to spend too much time talking about other candidates or policy necessarily, but at the same time, I do want to touch a little bit on policy. And I'll ask you, well, I sense you wanted to say something when I mentioned that.
Well, yeah, I'm sorry if I'm getting too much in the weeds. It's just hard you really have to try to disentangle the rhetoric from the record. That's the tough thing when anybody's trying to assess a politician. Yeah. So thanks. I'll do my best.
All right. Well, when we do think of policy, I've heard you speak. I've attended a couple of events, so I've chatted with you at least once or twice, and that's about it. But in a nutshell, like, what's your elevator speech? What are the most important policies to you, or most important policy areas, let's say?
I think the blinking red light is healthcare. So because of sunsetting ACA subsidies, people's healthcare premiums are skyrocketing right now. Lots of people are going to lose their insurance, and that's a problem for those people. And a lot of those people are working really hard. ACA subsidies cover a lot of folks who don't have like traditional 9-to-5 jobs, like farmers, for example. But also, it's going to affect the healthcare system. So what happens when the hospital's revenue drops 10, 15, 20%? Hospital can't stay open anymore. Hospital can't meet its payroll. So there was a study that came out in the summer and used a very simple methodology that nobody's really attacked, to say if the big, beautiful bill goes fully into effect, we could lose 8 of our 12 hospitals in the district. So I think whoever the congressperson is from New York 23 in the next term needs to make it their full-time job to save our healthcare. And in the short term, that means like get those ACA subsidies back, get these cuts reversed. But long term, we need to look for a way to cut our costs, simplify the system, cut out some of these middlemen, and get to a place where we can offer healthcare to everybody at a price they can afford. That would definitely be number one. And after that, we probably need to talk about housing.
On the healthcare thing, I'm just wondering, I assume you're rubbing elbows with some Republicans and people that may not feel the same as you in your existence. What is the hope? What is the level of hope of people from that side of politics coming to the middle and having a serious discussion about healthcare? What do you feel, where are we at with that socially, I guess, as a nation, do you think?
I've been amazed at the lack of pushback that I've gotten in that kind of conversation. These things get caught in the gears of partisan fights, and there are terms that we can use to polarize people against policies like socialism or giveaways or whatever. And I suppose there are the same kind of terms that exist from the left, although I try not to do that. But yeah, I think everybody that I talk to in my regular life, they exist in one of two places. They still have healthcare they like. Maybe they have a government job, say, and their healthcare is okay. And they don't want to have the conversation. But I meet a lot more people who are healthcare insecure for one reason or another. They don't make enough money. They make too much money. They have a non-traditional job. They, we have this weird like employment-based system. So maybe like they left their partner that had the good job and now they don't have healthcare. There are just so many ways to fall through the cracks of the system. We're getting to the point where there are more cracks than system. And people are getting desperate, and it doesn't really matter if they love free market economics or if they're a Bernie guy like you. They know we need to make a big change.
I'm sensing a big change coming in that area also, that people are realizing that we can't be bickering from the sides about, from the opposing sides about it. It's a national thing that we need to find a solution for. And maybe I'm just being optimistic, but I'm sensing that that's out there, and I'm trying to encourage that type of thinking. So, well, getting back to the race, and we've only got probably 5 or 10 minutes left, 5 minutes or so left here, but back to the race. You are my first guest here on episode 1. I expect to have the other candidates on. I've already spoken to Jim King when I met him with you the other night. There's also a candidate out in Erie County, I believe. I can't think of the gentleman's name now, but plans on running as a Democrat, I believe. Do you know where that stands? I mean, what is the timeline of the party primaries and other candidates? Where does your race stand in that sense, in the bureaucratic sense, I guess?
Great question. And by the way, I should have said at the top, congratulations on your podcast. I'm excited for you getting started, and good luck.
Thanks.
So in the technical stuff, let's talk about that. So New York State does not have open primaries. So only Democrats can vote in the Democratic primary. Only working family party members can vote in the working families primary.
I will interrupt and say that's the only reason I'm registered as a Democrat in this state, is so I can vote in the primary. So just to add that. There's
probably a lot of people that haven't thought about it yet. And if you want to vote in the Democratic primary, the last day to change your registration is February 14th. So get in touch with your county board of elections if you still need to change your registration, and you can change it right back. It really doesn't take that long. It's not that hard. The petitioning season is the next thing we're looking at as a campaign. That's about getting on the ballot. So currently we're out looking for volunteers to help us knock doors, to talk to Democratic super voters in all across the district who can sign a petition to get me on the ballot. We set a goal of 10,000 signatures, so that's a lot more than I can do myself. But I'm confident that we can get there. And then the next step is campaigning for the primary, which will take place on June the 23rd. That's when the state primary is. Yeah. So whoever succeeds in getting on the ballot will be in the Democratic primary on the 23rd.
And I'm curious about how you feel about a primary. Would you prefer that there is no primary? Wouldn't it be easier for any candidate running to run on there? What's your view about that likelihood of a primary? Where do you think that's going to end or fall?
Well, let me say generally, I think primaries are good. More primaries, not less. I think that the Democratic ticket in 24 would have been a lot stronger if we'd had a primary. I'm speaking of the presidential ticket. And there are things that are appealing about a primary, even for me as a candidate. For example, it's more attention. It's more earned media, more journalists that are interested in writing a story about you if you're in a primary. So that's great. It gives you a chance to hone your skills in a friendly environment before you're up in front of, a hostile audience and an opponent who, may want to destroy you rather than just beat you. So that's a positive. The third thing, though, is really a negative, and that is it costs a lot of money to run for office in a big rural district. And if you have a primary, you have to spend money on the primary. So from a budgeting perspective, it'd be great if you didn't have one. But really, I'm open-minded about it because there are positives and negatives, and it's important for people's voice to be heard, for people to have a real choice.
Great. We're getting towards the end of our little chat here, but I wanted to, we started off by me asking you, who are you, what are you doing, and whatnot. And so I guess my last question, and maybe one or two others, but my last big question is, how are you doing? What's it like as a person to be out there? The you, I know you're married to Katie, you have a son. What's it like for you to be out there as a citizen doing this?
It's a lot of fun. So I am an introvert. It's why I'm a scholar. I'm somebody that can sit in a basement office and literally read manuscripts for 6 or 8 hours at a time, and not feel lonely or sad. But I like people. And doing this, being a candidate has given me the opportunity, the reason to make so many new friends and to go to so many places that I've never been and talk to the kind of people that I wouldn't normally talk to and learn so much. And so it's been a wonderful learning process. And even just as a candidate, you have a chance to connect people and make things happen in a way that solves problems for folks. I don't have any power, but just having a network gives you a chance to help people. And I think a lot of us right now are looking for ways that we can help people, like any way to help people. And so it's been good to have something that I can do that's positive this campaign season. So
excellent. I wish you well. And I've been interviewing people in different situations, I guess, for many years. And one of my favorite questions, and it's a question that I also end up getting really interesting responses from, will be the last question I always ask, and that is, considering what we're talking about, is there something you'd like to add without me asking a pointed question?
Oh, okay. Oh, that's very interesting. Let me see. Oh, okay. Do we have a couple of minutes? All right. I said I'm for the common good. The Stamp data center in Genesee County. This is out of the district, but I want people to know about it because it's the opposite of the common good, and it is a great example of the kind of government we have to get rid of. So Genesee County built a business park. They spent $100 million in public money. this can be a great thing for counties to do, but they've had trouble filling the business park. They just got a second proposal for a data center. This data center, if built, would use as much power as Buffalo all the time. It would require hundreds of millions of dollars more in public subsidies in terms of tax breaks, pilot deals. And it would provide a grand total of 100 jobs. And these are jobs like, being a gatekeeper, sweeping the floor, cleaning the bathrooms. Not great jobs. So that's at least $1 million a job. So not surprisingly, there's some public opposition to this. I think that I will probably be doing an event with a Democratic candidate in District 24, where Genesee County is. But I mention it because, I said earlier that government has a habit of investing in huge companies with the hope that they'll make life better for us. This is what that is, and we need to be doing the opposite. We should be investing in our main streets, in our downtowns, in our rural schools. Like that is where we will get a big return. People don't want to do it because it's hard, but we have to get used to doing things that are hard, again, in government, if we really want to make people's lives better. But that thing should absolutely be defeated as the definition of a boondoggle. That's, I guess, what I would want folks to know.
Right. I appreciate you bringing that to light, because I was not aware of that specific one. I do know that there's trying to put a data center here on Cayuga Lake, which will probably use the same amount of energy. And I guess, real quickly, I don't want to hang on this topic too long, but who does benefit from that then? If there's political motivation and energy to make that thing exist, then who does benefit?
Well, the counties want the property taxes, right? But they're going to end up way, way, way in the negative. Really, I think they're just chasing a sunk cost. They've already made some investment, and so they want to have something to show for it. It's just a bad idea. The primary beneficiaries will be AI companies, the people that buy the data. And of course, AI indirectly benefits regular people a little bit, but it also harms regular people because it raises your electricity rates, and it makes water scarcer. Those things use an enormous amount of water, and it makes it harder for a lot of people to do their jobs, like teachers. Teachers are very frustrated by AI being used in the classroom often. So yeah, I don't think the benefits are widely spread. And that's exactly the question, Don, that we should be asking when we make a public investment like that is will these benefits be widely spread, and will they be net positive?
Good. Well, thanks for your insight on that. That's Aaron Gies, the candidate for New York's 23rd Congressional District. And, the podcast just getting started. The electoral season is just getting started. I plan on doing this program through next November. I expect we're going to talk more and more with you at least several times between now and then, because I've got my eyes on District 23 a lot. And we'll also be hearing from other candidates running for this seat also. But for now, I'll say thank you, Aaron Gies, for joining us. I'm Don Baisley. I'm not running for Congress.
Thanks, Don.
Well, that's just about all the time we've got for this first episode of I'm Not Running for Congress. But before we go, I want to leave with a little musical clip. This program was kind of dedicated to, or trying to inspire unity, if you will, in American politics and discussion. And I think art plays an important role of that. If you know me, you know I'm into music. I happen to come across a singer-songwriter whose name is Scott Cook. And I feel that his music, a lot of his music, have themes that are very similar to what inspired this program. So we're going to leave you with a little music from Scott Cook right here on I'm Not Running for Congress.
I love this country. I love the people and the land. But there's a lot of stuff happening that I can't understand. We got billions for bailouts. We got trillions for wars, but it's hard for working people to make a living anymore. Hear me out for a second. This ain't a partisan song. It ain't about right and left. It's about right and wrong. We're fighting over the scraps. 'cause screwing us over's a bipartisan thing, and it's working people who made this country great, not the greedy opportunists or the peddlers of hate. The new day is coming, it's gotta come from you and me. Oh, say can you see you got a neighbor, we don't always agree. He's a bit of a redneck, according to a hippie like me. But if you're in the ditch, he'll pull you out, I know you will. And that's more than I can say for all those dickheads on the hill. He works hard for his family, he's got loyalty and pride. The company took all he gave and then cast him aside. 'Cause there's profit in poverty, hell, there's profit in prisons. They don't even pay taxes, they just buy politicians. But it's working people who made this country great, not the greedy opportunists or the peddlers of hate. If a new day's coming, it's gotta come from you and me. Oh, say can you see? Oh, say can you see? And in New York Harbor, there's a lady with a flame, still calling in the huddled masses in liberty's name. There's fear on the airwaves and hatred wrapped in the flag, turning strangers into enemies and our riches into rags. And a revolution